3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgilla, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Dr. Nina Ashford, Chief of Public Health Services, Mr. Sean O'Donnell, Deputy Chief of Public Health Services, Dr. James Bridgers, Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and today we have two guests, Dean Smith, Manager, Montgomery County Business Center, and Jacob Newman, who is the Director for the Silver Spring Regional Services Center. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Mr. County Executive, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Since the elections last week, there have been a couple of basic questions that Democrats and progressive leaders around the country are trying to figure out. And I think the obvious questions are, how did it happen and what's next? And I thought a lot about how things happen. It is the nature of doing this kind of work. And I thought over the past week and watched all the explanations on the outcome, and two things become increasingly clear to me. First was and foremost, this is an economy election, and it shouldn't have been a surprise that so many working class and who are living paycheck to paycheck voters migrated to vote Republican this time, many for the first time. The world's more expensive for them. Fed policy was a major contributor, and President Biden, though he didn't create the policies, left the Fed Chair Jerome Powell in place, in my opinion, far too long. In that moment, Fed policy became the president's policy, and the damage and stress those policies caused left Biden holding the bag, so to speak. During the Trump years, while he served as the Fed's chair because Trump appointed him the chair, Steve Pearlstein from the Washington Post wrote that the Powell put had become more extreme than the Greenspan put, and had adopted a strategy that works like a one-way ratchet, providing a floor for stock and bond prices, but never a ceiling. In other words, the Fed policy was to prop up stocks and not worry about how high they went, and not worry about how profitable corporations were. And that was the focus of having a strong economy rather than jobs and employment growth. And the Washington Post itself wrote about the same time that the Fed was addicted to propping up markets even when there was no need. And I think a lot of us felt a lot of times money flows to large corporations when there is no need for money to flow to them. It's just a good political thing to do if you're running for high office and need the money. But most telling of all to me was a comment that Mr. Powell made to justify high interest rates in the last year. And he said to the effect that they were going to cool down the economy in order to slow down job growth in the midst of declining unemployment. The logic, such as it was that job growth tightened labor markets, more jobs were chasing workers rather than workers chasing jobs, which led to higher wages, which drove inflation, and never mind the record profits that the corporations were bathing in while all this is gone. So basically, the concept was that if you have a growing economy, your workforce has more choices of where to work. When they have more choices, employers have to pay more to be competitive to attract the workers, and that was a bad thing. And if you wanted to send a message to working people that job growth and wage growth were bad, you could have picked the worst message to send and a worse time to send it than in the middle of an election. More jobs and higher wages are what workers aspire to. It's how you build and keep a middle class. And telling workers that you want to suppress that was not a good look in a tight election, possibly in any election. How does one person have the power to decide to slow down our economy as we're recovering from a once-in-a-century pandemic? The idea that one decision that crucial was left to one individual is a little bit nuts. The rate of increase in length of high interest rates didn't make our economy stronger. It hampered our production. It hurt average Americans, local and state governments, and the business community. When interest rates rise, the cost of government borrowing rises. The school we build costs a lot more when the interest rates are 6.5% or 7% than when the interest rates are 2 or 3%. So it had effects all throughout the economy at every level. Since the pandemic, I could clearly see that the increased challenges we're facing to operate this government and serve our residents. The pandemic was not kind to us. If this government has struggled, then every government and most businesses, particularly the small and medium firms, have struggled as well. And all these costs, increased costs, wind up getting passed on to consumers and taxpayers. And that creates a very unhappy electorate. Second truth from the results of the national election, which saddens me, is that nationally, the Democratic Party lost the faith and trust of working people in large measure, especially those without college degrees, as well as those who generally feel marginalized, taken for granted, and looked down upon by those who are considered elites. And even those young people who were chasing those jobs and hoping for wages high enough to afford exploding housing prices didn't want to see jobs and wages depressed. I don't think you could have angered a broader group of people. Would have had to work really hard. We need to really understand how a billionaire candidate being advised by the world's richest men was able to better connect with more working class people than the Democratic Party was. And that's something people have to seriously think about. Montgomery County is not a reflection of national results. That's the good news. Currently, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz received 74% to 22% of the vote. In 2020, Biden received 79% and Trump got 19%. So Trump grew a little and the Democrats declined a little, but in general, it was very successful. In like 2016, Hillary Clinton got 74% of the vote and Trump got 19% of the vote. Although Trump gained 3 points here, there's a clear mandate from the residents of this county that they want and support Democratic priorities and progressive policies. This isn't our first rodeo with the Trump administration or with the Republican Congress. We've done this before. We're going to work with them wherever we can. We'll voice our disagreements with any and all the choices that they make will not be in the best interests of our county residents. We're basically taking the same approach that Governor Moore is taking when he talked about cooperate when you need to and fight back when it's the wrong thing. And we'll be doing the same thing. If there are opportunities to cooperate, we'll cooperate. And if there are things we need to oppose, we will not be shy about opposing them. But most immediately, we remain most concerned about those in our community who are living in fear and anxiety. The temperature in the Latino community is highly elevated. The fear that the president-elect has stoked and the way he's described how he would carry this out is very destabilizing to people. We continue to monitor report of hate incidents. Yesterday, I met with Chief Yamada, and this was a key focus of our conversation, making sure that residents of this county feel safe and are protected from hate crimes. And we agree that our policies are unchanged by this election. I'm also getting updates from our 5 regional service centers, as well as our Office of Community Partnerships, who have liaisons with all the different ethnic and faith communities. We want to ensure all residents in any community who are victims of hate that we're here to listen and will respond to concerns quickly. As we continue through this time of transition, we're going to continue to analyze and review all the potential impacts that we're likely to see from the change in federal leadership, particularly the fiscal impacts from the loss of federal funds that might be at risk. We have to expect that significant changes to laws, policies, and regulations and budget expenditures that are currently benefiting the residents of our county and the goals of our administration, those things are important to us and they're at great risk of change. Two of our major concerns are the impact on the county's federal workforce. They've talked about dismantling departments. They've talked about moving agencies out of the county, out of the DC area. All of these could take tens of thousands of jobs from the DC workforce. And if people aren't willing to move, or if they're in agencies where their jobs are simply cut, they have no more need for these people, it's not like they're going to be able to pop into another job in the DC area and continue the work they were doing. So this could have serious impact for our federal workforce, whether it's reducing the number through moving or reducing the number through shutting of departments. And obviously that has a big impact on Montgomery County. It's definitely something that could impact our tax revenues from a large number of residents in this county. It could affect home prices if people have to sell their homes and there's not a market because somebody has to have the income you used to have in order to live in the house you're living in. So this could have multiple repercussions for the council. And as you can see from the BizNow article on the screen, even our local real estate industry is feeling the fear of impacts of the incoming administration. I mean, a lot of consultant groups that do work for federal agencies, if the federal agencies move or if they cease to function, that will impact many of the other groups who support the federal government here. The changes will occur in all directions. This week, President-elect Trump selected former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin to run the EPA, who said last week the goal of his agency is to restore U.S. energy dominance, revitalize our auto industry to bring back American jobs, and make the U.S. the global leader in AI. But at least he ended with, we will also do this while protecting access to clean air and water. I don't know what access means. Does it mean I'll be able to drive to a mountain somewhere and find clean air and water, or does it mean that clean air and water are going to be part of our environment? There's no telling what these folks mean, but we do know that I'm interested in dealing with climate change. My other concern that we're closely monitoring is to what degree the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice will change or alter policies that correspond to our current policies and practice, particularly policies that impact our immigrant community. We've had a longstanding understanding with the federal government when it came to immigration that they were primarily focused on removing people who had committed violent crimes, engaged in drug trafficking, human trafficking, basically dangerous criminal elements who we don't want here. And we've been able to cooperate to some extent, even with ICE in dealing with that. So people who say we're a sanctuary city, actually not a sanctuary city. We're pretty close, but we do not make exceptions for, we do make exceptions for people who are committed to, violent, dangerous acts that we're not interested in any more than anybody else would be interested in seeing them protected by the immigration status. Montgomery County takes great pride in our diverse and inclusive community. Immigrants from around the world specifically come here because they have community here and feel safe here. I've had that experience from talking to a lot of the countries where we're looking for companies to come here from, and how they talk about Montgomery County as a place where they know that the residents can come here and feel safe, feel that they're in a welcoming community and in an environment where it's safe for them to invest in open businesses. And it would be really bad if we jeopardize that sense of what Montgomery County is. I've seen many presidential elections in my lifetime. I've probably disliked more than I've liked. No matter who's resided in the White House, I've never felt that my impact or commitment to those in need, the working class and middle class who build this country, and the marginalized, that those have always been the most important things to me in the work I do. And in this election, it's not going to change that either. I look forward to working with Governor Moore, our congressional delegation, including our new Congresswoman, April McLean Delaney. Thank you so much for pulling that out on jurisdictions that we navigate these changing times and for our county, for our region, and for our state. So I encourage all the residents to continue to follow our news. Information will be kept as updated as possible, and we're preparing for the upcoming inaugurations of council members and President Trump. On a good note, our county's seen positive economic news over the past year, including record low unemployment rates, multi-million-dollar expansions by local companies, and for the first time in our county's history, meeting and exceeding our savings goals, known as our reserves. When I came on into this office, we had never achieved our 10% target. Last fiscal year, we ended with 17% in reserves. So we've come a long way from where we were, and hopefully we'll be able to continue on the same track. We've also developed strategies within the county to keep our economy moving forward. One tool that will be available to businesses starting this week is the MOVE Grant Program. The MOVE program is intended to attract new businesses to Montgomery County. Eligible new businesses will receive a one-time grant upon signing a commercial lease within the county, or grant money to for expanding their current locations within the county. Awards will be dependent on the size of the space lease. The MOVE Grant program was enacted by the Council this summer. Since then, our Small Business Center has been working on executive regulations needed to allow businesses to apply for the money. We've developed eligibility criteria for all the awards and administration protocols for the program. So the maximum award for large business within a strategic industry will be $150,000 per business. And I'd like to welcome Gene Smith, who manages Montgomery County Business Center, to this media briefing, and he'll explain how the MOVE grants work and give us an update on the Business Center. Hello, Gene.
Hello, and thank you, County Executive Elrich, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gene Smith, manager of the Montgomery County Business Center. Montgomery County Business Center is a team of dedicated county staff who help businesses start and grow. Our team provides tailored support for businesses of all sizes, manage the county's 3 innovation centers, and we oversee several business grants. Don't have time to go into all of our team does, but I do want to highlight a critical initiative of County Executive Elrich and my team, which is to do door-to-door outreach for our storefronts across the community. We have our team has 4 business liaisons who spend a couple of days a week directly engaging our small businesses, our storefronts, to hear their challenges and opportunities and connect them to critical resources to grow, ensuring that they don't have to come to us or we have to wait for a challenge to come to us. Our team is out there meeting them today and getting to know their needs and their opportunities. As the County Executive Elrich mentioned, the MOVE program has been updated recently. It's been around for 10 years, but through council action and executive support, it's growing. So as it was already mentioned, the grant is for businesses who are signing their lease for the first time in the county, first commercial lease, or if they're growing by at least 500 square feet in the county. How much is the award? It's $150,000 is the maximum, but it's going to be based on how much square footage, new square footage the businesses are adding. So more square footage equals a bigger grant. Almost all businesses are eligible except restaurants and retail businesses, as was excluded by the county law. The program is funded by annual appropriation by the county council, so it is a first come, first served program. We're going to be looking at the overall utilization, hoping to have a recommendation next year that equals the current expansion, but we do encourage businesses to find out more on the county's business website for all eligibility and program requirements. So that is going to be on the county's main website under business. You can look for the MOVE program there, or at www.montgomerycountymd.gov/business. If you have any questions or businesses have questions, they can contact the Business Center at businesscenter@montgomerycountymd.gov or email me, Gene Smith, at montgomerycountymd.gov. Before I take questions about the MOVE program, I just want to also highlight the upcoming Small Business Saturday on November 30th. This is a great opportunity for folks to support their businesses. Really, we encourage our residents to support our local small businesses all year round. But as you get ready to think about or start or finish your holiday shopping, we encourage residents to go out on November 30th and support our small businesses across the community. So with that, I'm available for questions about the MOVE program and turn it back over to the county executive for the next portion if there are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gene Smith. Members of the media, please raise your hands now if you have questions about the MOVE grant program. We'll take other questions towards the end. Related to this topic, please raise your hand now. No questions regarding the MOVE program? I guess not. Gene, thank you for joining us this afternoon. You can remain on the call, but if you need to depart, please feel free to do so. Thank you, Mr. County Executive.
Yeah, I just want to touch base on another bit of good news we got yesterday. I attended a meeting in White Oak, about the Vivo White Oak project, and it has a new developer. The new developers has his first plans, I think, through parking planning. And he did a public meeting last night and laid out his vision for what he's doing. The county had set aside $40 million for infrastructure for this project, and that money we've kept all these years. Even though the previous developer failed to get anything going, we now have somebody who is having something going. He's planning to get in the ground and start putting in the piping and the roads in the coming year, expected by the summer as a start. A very ambitious construction schedule. He's looking at 3,000 housing units, millions of square feet of commercial development, Uh, his company has another company under its wing that actually does life sciences development and looking to bring a life sciences component over there next to FDA. So a lot of the things that people are hoping for, housing and jobs, are a big part of this development. And he's working with Montgomery College on a possible campus on his site as well. This is a 280-acre development in Montgomery County. It's unusual to have that much land available for one development. He showed pictures last night that showed how places like Pike and Rose, other areas of the county, downtown Bethesda, would fit inside of the space that he's developing there. So I think there's a lot of good news. These counties waited for this a long time. So I thought I'd share with people that there's going to be this major new development that's going to bring a lot of amenities, jobs, and quality of life type things like grocery stores and shops and things to the East County. So I'm really looking forward to this development. Going to turn on to something fun also, which is Montgomery County Thanksgiving Parade. Thanksgiving comes late this year, but DC's area's largest Thanksgiving parade arrives early, this Saturday to be specific. We're going to celebrate the holiday spirit in downtown Silver Springs starting at 10 a.m. Parade highlights the diversity and vibrancies we love about Montgomery County. It's always fun to see so many people participating in this great community event. This year, we're going to also honor two of our Montgomery County Olympians, gold medalists Thea Lafond and Aaron Owusu. Our county is home to an extraordinary number of top athletes, from swimmers and wrestlers to fencers and track standouts. I'm glad we get to highlight these two athletes and celebrate their accomplishments and remind all of us how special those 2 weeks in Paris were this past summer. Parade's a great opportunity to draw thousands to downtown Silver Spring, and we hope they stay around and shop and dine at all of our stores. I'd like I look forward, I should say, to being there. I've done this parade most years, and it's fun. And if the weather is warm, it'll even be better than it is sometimes. And I'm looking for residents to join us. Usually a lot of people turn out along the route. There's every year that there's some extra joy in a holiday season is needed. This is probably that year. I'd like to invite the director of our Regional Services Center, Jacob Newman, to talk to you a little bit more about the parade and the impact it has on Silver Spring. Hello, Jacob.
Good afternoon, County Executive and fellow participants from the media. It is wonderful to be here with you today. My name is Jacob Newman, Regional Services Center Director here with Montgomery County Government, and the County Executive introduced what's going on this weekend well. It dovetails nicely with Gene Smith's update about Small Business Saturday, driving foot traffic to our downtown in Silver Spring. The Thanksgiving Parade is a Montgomery County-wide parade and beloved by so many. We will have over 150 units with turkeys, dinosaurs, penguins, beauty queens, clowns, fire engines, and more. Silver Spring is the #1 place in the country to live with families. We are recognized as one of the most diverse communities in the entire country, one of the kindest and most generous. For more information, you can certainly go to silverspringdowntown.com and find information regarding road closures. There are certain streets which are closed, and you'll be pointed to the right garages to park in and stroll. We do have some nice weather ordered up, sunshine. We are also welcoming volunteers. So any last minute volunteers, young people looking for SSL hours or otherwise are welcome to visit that website, silverspringdowntown.com, to sign up to volunteer and get any more additional information. So come on down to our Arts and Entertainment District, our Urban District, and we look forward to seeing you and spreading some of the kindness and generosity and cheer that Silver Spring is known for and this season embodies. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Newman. Members of the media, any questions right now regarding the Thanksgiving Day Parade in downtown Silver Spring this Saturday? Any questions about that? No questions. You can remain here, Jacob, or you can depart if you have to go. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Mr. County Executive, all other topics. You're muted. Please unmute.
Thank you, Jacob. I hope we have a big crowd to cheer on the more than 150 community groups, marching bands, and mascots that are ready and to welcome in another holiday season here. Speaking of holidays, this is a COVID vaccine reminder for the upcoming holidays. We're getting to the time of year when more people are going inside, and on top of that, we're going in a time of year when more people are gathering from dispersed places for the holidays, and we're just 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. So it's a good time to remind people to make an appointment for your flu and updated COVID-19 vaccines. The CDC recommends COVID-19 vaccines for people 65 and older, and for people of any age who have moderate or severe conditions that impact their immune system. The vaccine can be obtained at most pharmacies or through a doctor's office. It's a good idea to take COVID-19 yearly. You not want to put your health of your family at risk when they come together for Thanksgiving. We cannot stave off the next wave of COVID, but we can be prepared for it, and we can limit its impact. And I continue to have the limited impact reinforced because I talk to a lot of people who are still getting it, but nobody's getting it the way we got it before the vaccines are here. So it continues to make a difference. And as long as we get updated vaccines, it will continue to make a difference. So I'd now like to give my health team an opportunity to weigh in on some other issues if they need to, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. No updates from me. Thanks for highlighting COVID vaccines.
I just like to recognize a few of our nursing homes in Montgomery County. In addition to what we've reported in the past, Maplewood Park Place has vaccinated 100% of their residents for COVID this year. And Ingleside at King Farm and Sunrise of Chevy Chase have also vaccinated more than 75% of their residents. So we're very excited about that. And we continue to work with all of our nursing homes and encourage not only our seniors living there, but living anywhere to get that COVID updated shot as well as their flu shot.
Thank you, Mr. Donoff. Dr. Bridgers?
No additional comments. Our public health team has covered it all with the respiratory illness season. Just encourage everyone to get vaccinated, especially if they're going to be around loved ones and those individuals that may have health immunocompromise and are at greater risk.
Thank you. Dr. Stoddard?
No additional comments.
No additional comments then. We'll open it up right now and we'll take general questions from members of the media. Please raise your hands. Jean Bixby, Mobile 360. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lorna. Hi, Mark. You had touched on this in your comments at the beginning, but federal workers in the county are really concerned about what could happen. Is the county coming up with some kind of plan to support these workers? What are you looking towards as we get closer to January? I know there's a lot of uncertainty about departments and who will be affected, but obviously it's going to greatly affect the county.
I gotta say, this is one of those disasters that falls far outside our normal budgetary scope. We're gonna have to take a recalibration as we see things unfold, and it's likely to not all unfold at once. It could unfold over a period of time, but we struggle now just to make rental assistance available to a small number of people. I cannot imagine what it's going to be like when you have possibly tens of thousands of people either have to sell their homes or have to find another job and aren't able to pay a mortgage payment. And then all the people who work the ancillary jobs in these agencies, they're not the scientists or the higher up government officials, but the people who clean the buildings and operate the buildings, the people who do support for everybody, they're all going to be casualties as well. So This is big and it's hard to grapple right now. We don't know what the number is going to be. I don't know when we'll know what the number is going to be. We don't know if Congress is going to go along with everything. So there are a lot of questions out there, but we had to do some things. We tried to help during the pandemic when people were out of work before wages started coming in. We will see what we're capable of. This is going to be a rough ride for a lot of people.
That's it for you, Ginny?
I do have a follow-up if that's
Go ahead.
specifically when I've been talking to a lot of folks in the community, specifically in the LGBTQ rights and reproductive health care spaces. And a lot of the folks I'm talking to in the organizational work are really at capacity helping people. Even in blue Montgomery County, people are scared. They're concerned about their rights. I know you just said this is going to be a budget nightmare, but what do you think the future is for those services and helping organizations that are trying to make Montgomery County a sanctuary county, especially as we will probably see an influx of people from red states?
In what sense are you using sanctuary?
I'm specific in this instance.
Like sanctuary for everything?
Let's for the sake of my question, let's focus on reproductive health care and gender affirming care.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. We'll continue to do as much as we can. We've got programs out there, but it all depends on what the real hit is on our budget. How much we lose in primarily income tax revenue. But that's potentially a big thing. So I can't answer that. We've managed to build reserves over the last few years. Even our last budget, we had the luxury of being able to use some of the reserves to do some major one-time things that we needed. But we took our reserves back down to a little over 10%, right around 11% actually. So we don't have a lot of room to play with. And if it's a long ongoing problem, the county will wind up looking much different. Either we'll walk away from a lot of people and not know what happens to them, or we'll try to help as many people as possible and discover that our means can't stretch across as wide a population as it's going to need to stretch over. This is unprecedented. It's not like a pandemic which goes away. It's not like a bad storm. This is like imagining 4 years of this, and if it all hits at once in the beginning, it's probably going to be even harder. I wish I could say something more comforting. I mean, I could be full of bluster and bravo and say we'll handle this, but looking at the numbers realistically, all I can say is we'll do everything we can, and there are going to be limits on what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Tom Sherwood, I see you're waving. Good afternoon, WAMU.
Hey,
Good
Tom.
afternoon. Specifically, the politics hour. I don't want to associate myself with the rest of the radio station unfairly. Good morning or good afternoon, Mr. County Executive. I want to ask you, I came in a little bit late, so I may have missed it. You've just talked about the federal budget threats coming from the new incoming Trump administration. Also, maybe did you discuss, and if you haven't, I'll ask you about the report this morning that Maryland state government faces a $2.7 billion deficit, and it's worst in 20 years. So in addition to whatever is happening on the federal level, it sounds like the state's not going to be around to help out on things like the schools funding and other matters. Are you concerned? What do you have to say about this report that the Maryland lawmakers are facing a $2.7 billion budget deficit they have to resolve in the coming year?
So I haven't seen the report. So apparently I have some reading to do this.
It's in the media, so I know it's true.
Yeah, I believe that's like, I've told people no longer tell me that, you brought the weather with you, because that just reinforces people's idea that the government controls the weather. So yeah, maybe it's true. I think it's depending on what it is. If this is a short year, if this is just a one-time hit on the general amount of funds available, that's one problem. If it's them looking out and saying, we're not going to have money for transportation going forward, or for other long-term investments going forward, that's a different problem. This is an opportunity for the state to do some tax restructuring.
Does
And
that mean more taxes?
well, it's not
Yeah.
always more. Maybe I would say differently landing on people. I know the governor, for example, is looking at a cut in income tax. That was one of the things his economic commission proposed. But that came with a price tag of about $1 billion loss in revenues. So I don't know if what they're going to be able to do. I mean, what you don't want to do is to drive yourself into, a whirlpool, draining everything out of the bathtub. And that's what I worry about, is if you get less revenues, and the reaction is, well, we'll just accept it and we'll do fewer things. And you do fewer things, you're less able to attract people to come to where you are. And then that just reinforces, I don't want to be there anymore. And it's just a downward cycle. And I think people have to resist the pressure to spin themselves into a downward cycle and to start figuring out what we can do. We've looked, there are things we could do in the county that would, on the one hand, let us get a lot more money in order to build infrastructure, which would be good for bringing businesses here, lower the costs on developers, which are the people most affected and most deterred by comparative rates. I've pointed out numerous times that our rates relating to commercial property are the cheapest in the area. So we've got room where we could adjust things and actually wind up with as much money or more, but not taking hits on key elements, not putting hits on key elements of our economy to the point that it's harmful to us. The state's going to have to think about what they're going to do. I mean, they don't have a military, so there's not much to be saved. We're not building any bombers here, so there's not much to be saved out of that. That's a lot of money out of their budget by any measure. I forget if they're up to, is it a 7? No, it's more than that. I'm trying to think how large their budget is, but it's huge. So
Well,
$2 billion is going to be a headache.
the 2.7 billion, according to the story in the Baltimore Sun, doesn't include any of the possibility of federal funds lost. So thank you very much for answering my question.
They're not even including the potential loss of federal funds?
Forecast, and this is a forecast
Oh.
by David Romans, an independent state fiscal analyst. He says the forecast doesn't factor in any potential erosion of federal support from the incoming Donald Trump administration through the possibility of losing federal funding on jobs or jobs in Maryland and other potential impacts. It's alarming, the analyst said. So
I think all of us are going to have to sit down together and figure out how we manage this. What the state does is going to affect the county. What the county does is going to affect the state. I mean, we are the driver of I think something like 80% of the state's taxes from capital gains. So if we have a hit on capital gains, on the other hand, the Trump presidency could be great for capital gains. Then it'll lower the tax rate on capital gains, so it will be less great. Anyway, that's a lot to chew on. Thank you for further making this morning difficult.
Well, it's not. Well, Thanksgiving is coming up. We can think of some good things later in the month. Thank you again.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, Tom. Members of the media, any more questions for the county executive or the rest of the team? No more questions this afternoon? Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Stay safe. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.